Psalm 23 is where we're heading. A quick snapshot from long ago. She wakes up, it's dark and a little bit cold. All she can hear is her own breathing and a slow creaking somewhere up above. Perhaps she wonders for an instant, where is she? Then she realises, they've left me in this cot again. Instinctively, she decides, maybe I should try screaming. Screaming usually works. Maybe one of them will hear me and come running. I'm remembering what a 6-month-old does in the middle of the night. Why? Because, well, it's dark, it's a little bit cold, she's hungry, she's all alone, she wants a cuddle, and so she cries out she just wants mummy near, or as a second-rate option, maybe dad. As we conclude this most fiercely testing year, it's the most fiercely testing year that I can remember in half a century. Looking back, we have endured high anxiety and misery together, massively stretching our resilience, agility, and strength of character. Through it all, I couldn't tell you how many times I have found myself crying out for reassurance that I'm not alone, and for real comfort, and for sustenance and wisdom and relief, and for the assurance that all of that is right at hand. I couldn't tell you how many times. If I'm honest, even with all the strength and maturity that God provides, I'm still a little like that little baby girl, awake in her cot in the chilly darkness, far more dependent than she possibly imagines. I selected Psalm 23 as the first of our summer psalms because it brings such wonderful assurance as we close out this disruptive year. Is there a way, this is my question, is there a way to face the future from here all the way into eternity with calm confidence, unshakable calm confidence, whatever fears arise and however intense they may be? Psalm 23 is so ancient and precious and pithy. It captures so much in so few words. It's composed by great David himself, the young sheep herder, anointed as the second king and archetypal ruler of God's people. Why did God choose him? Well, at one level, it's because God looks upon the heart, and listen to his heart. Verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want. Now, David himself has spent years and years in those wild southern hills with his flocks. He knows full well that the sheep are far more dependent upon him than they can possibly imagine. What does a good shepherd do? Well, a good shepherd provides. I can't make this button work. Here we go. A good shepherd provides good food, ample water supply so they can be healthy and strong. In the long term, of course, he's aiming for them to reproduce and make a profit. He provides for them. He also guides them, because there are wrong paths, dangerous paths, and there are right paths, safe paths. And sometimes all it takes is a gentle nudge of the staff in order to persuade a wayward lamb back on the track. He provides, he guides, he protects. The reason he's carrying a cudgel or a rod on his belt, this is the ancient shepherd I'm imagining, the rod on his belt is to protect against marauding predators or thieves. That's what a good shepherd does, provides, guides. protects. Now, it's not like David himself is a wimp. As a shepherd, in fact, he is so fearless and determined. He has faced wild animals, the bear, the lion, alone, and has rescued sheep from their mouths. Do you have that kind of guts? I don't know that I do. Later, as a warrior, he has become a household name, exalted far above all the other mighty men of Israel. And yet he knows full well, even he needs a shepherd. Everyone needs a shepherd who will provide and guide and protect. And like anyone else, he needs rest and replenishment and reassurance, and what that takes is a shepherd. In fact, I'd say, looking at David, the fact that he knows he needs a shepherd and acknowledges that he needs a shepherd is one of the essential characteristics that makes him fit to rule. And so as he acknowledges before God, "O Lord, I am so much more dependent upon you than I can possibly imagine. I need a shepherd myself." As he acknowledges that, for him it's a vivid way of saying, especially as I face temptation, or especially as I face disruption, especially as I face seemingly impossible circumstances, but also in the humdrum rhythms of everyday life, I need guidance, I need provision, I need your protection, O Lord. And so in those first few words of verse 1, "The Lord is my shepherd," he declares in just a few words of all the other possible shepherds that he possibly could choose to rely upon: loving parents, older brothers, wise mentors, great Samuel the prophet. Hey, maybe just himself, he's a pretty tough guy. He says, "I will settle for nothing less than the very best shepherd of all." I'll settle for nothing less than the very best shepherd of all. Everyone needs a shepherd. My shepherd is the Lord. And that's the emphasis in verse 1. The emphasis is, well, who's your shepherd? My shepherd is the Lord. I'll read from verse 1. "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want." Now watch, he provides. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. What's more, he, as well as guiding, he protects. Verse 4, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Do you hear his heart? For him, this is bedrock truth, and he's built his life on it. When he finds himself swamped with darkness, or crying out in confusion or anxiety or misery, when he finds himself besieged by evil, he says, "Everyone needs a shepherd. My shepherd is the Lord." And the glory of it, if you look in verse 4, in every situation, "You, O Lord, are with me." And that is glorious. The Lord of heaven and earth, the one who made the cosmos, has promised his personal presence. "You, O Lord, are with me in every situation." And everything in this psalm flows from this bedrock certainty. What are some of the wonderful personal consequences? I'm going to highlight two. The first one in verses 1, 2 and 3 is, "With the Lord as my shepherd, I shall not want." I shall not. It's so easy to fear the future. What if my health slides? What if success never really quite happens? What if popularity never really quite happens? What if finances dwindle? In the end, isn't it my job to be looking after number one? What if I'm unable to work? What if work isn't satisfying? What if I'm not wise enough or brave enough or godly enough for challenges on the road ahead? What if my soul is seriously impure or just heavily depleted? What if those I love the most are gone? What if I'm alone? David declares, not brashly, just confidently, verse 4, "My shepherd is always with me." Always. And so because of who my shepherd is, nothing I genuinely need will ever be lacking. And I conclude from that, if there's something I don't have, well, maybe that suggests it's something that God knows I don't actually need it right now, whatever I may think. Do you catch the contentment in David's voice and the satisfaction as he enjoys being cared for by this great shepherd of the sheep? Verse 3, "He even restores my soul." When my grandfather resigned from his position with the Bank of New South Wales in 1938, in order to head off to train for missionary work in India, as it turned out to be, his manager asked him, "Hey, don't you think it'd be better to stay here with the bank? You stay with us, you've got a salary for life." Those were the days. "You've got a salary for life, you can earn a good income, and you can serve God as much as you want in your spare time." And my grandfather's retort was, "Yeah, who do you think has the greater resources? The Bank of New South Wales or the living God?" It's so easy to fear the future. David says, "With the Lord as my shepherd, I will never be lacking. I shall not want." That's the first of the wonderful personal consequences that you can see very obviously right here in the psalm. The second one in verse 4, with the Lord as my shepherd, I will fear no evil. Now, this is hardly a promise of a cruisy life. It seems inconceivable, really, but what if my government turns against me? David's did. It seems inconceivable, but what if my family turns against me? David's did. What if temptation gets the upper hand and I find myself being sucked into what feels like a swirling vortex of temptation? Certainly happened for David. What if I find myself being shunned and mistreated and frozen out? That all happened for David. David can declare, my shepherd promises not freedom from evil, well, not in this life, but freedom from the fear of evil. You hear the difference there. Freedom from the fear of evil in verse 4. how can he possibly promise freedom from the fear of evil? Well, because he's with me. Always. He's with me. And because of who he is, the Lord of heaven and earth. That's how he can promise freedom from the fear of evil. Our own Bishop, Peter Lynn, is walking a dark valley even as we speak. It has been a horrendous 2 months. That's his own description. Last Sunday, his mum died, 12 days after his dad. Because of quarantine arrangements, they've spent Christmas still awaiting the funeral. And here's what he wrote. Sadly and joyously, we will bury them together in the new year. Whilst the weight of our grief is entirely unfamiliar, our equally unfamiliar comfort and tearful joy is in what Christ did for them in his death and resurrection, which they both trusted in unswervingly. I may find myself in the darkest of valleys. The promise in this life is not there will be no evil, hardly. But with the Lord as my shepherd, I need not fear, because he's with me and because of who he is. What did the Lord Jesus declare about himself? He said, I am the good shepherd. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, and I lay down my life for the sheep. So is there a way to face the future from here today all the way into eternity with unshakable, calm confidence, whatever fears arise, however intense they may be? Yes, absolutely there is. This ancient psalm speaks of unshakable serenity and security when God himself is with me. I am so much more dependent than I possibly imagine. That's the truth of it. Everyone needs a shepherd. My shepherd is the Lord Jesus himself. I know I need his guidance. I need his provision. I need his protection. In every situation, I need him near, and he promises that he is. In every situation, I need a shepherd who is near and good and strong and wise. That's the shepherd I've got. At the close of this disruptive year, he also says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Truly, verse 3, he restores my soul. Now, as if those first four verses aren't quite enough, this psalm has even more for us, and we'll move much more quickly now. The scene switches from green pastures and quiet waters and narrow pathways and dark valleys to a lavish feast day and a sumptuous banquet table. And in fact, this is a long-awaited victory celebration. And as we read, you can see this host has planned everything at his table. Every element is perfectly arranged. He holds nothing back. There's oil for your head. We don't know much about the ancient practices of oil for your head, but clearly it honours the guest. There's wine for your cup. There's freedom from care. There's serious enemies cowering with dismay as they witness gracious, intimate fellowship with God Most High. and in case you think you don't have enemies, you bet you have enemies. The flesh, the world, the evil one himself. You bet you have enemies. And the guarantee that this great shepherd of the sheep is with me, we discover, is not only to bring reassurance in the presence, but also the promise of a glorious, glorious future. I hope you can see why I chose this psalm to follow Christmas, and also why I chose it to conclude this disruptive and fiercely intense, fiercely testing year. I am so depleted. Only in him can I possibly find the replenishment that my soul craves. And it's not as though the new year will arrive and then it's all going to be over. No. At best, I'm running with a serious limp. How can I face the testing months ahead with any confidence? They will be testing. Here's how. The Lord himself is near. He's with me. And I am with him. That's what the psalm says. Because my shepherd is Jesus himself, I can face the future with serenity and confidence. Verse 5. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So if we finish with a question, I know who my shepherd is. Who's yours?